hello everybody. So tonight we'll talk about Git and GitHub, and we'll talk really from the very beginning about what's Git, what's GitHub, and what you can do with it, even if you're not a programmer. So I'm pretty sure that everybody in this room is a knowledge worker, which means that basically you sit at a desk all day, you look at a computer, and you do stuff with your computer. I mean, you're not working in a field or in a mine, etc. So what do you do every day? You work with documents, and you always have the same workflow. You create files, can be a Word document, can be PowerPoint presentations or images in Photoshop, etc. And you save the document, then you edit it, and you save it again, etc., etc. So always the same workflow. So basically, you can draw a timeline where every 5 minutes, you'll have a checkpoint. It's when you save your document to the hard drive. It can be a Word document or any image. And we can visualize that with this kind of graph. The thing is, each time you save something, usually it's like there's a reason why you save it. For instance, you're in a contract, and you've just wrote a new paragraph for the contract, and you want to save your work. I mean, you all lost something at some point in your life because your computer crashed and you lost a document, and now you are used to save a lot of time. But the problem is, if you want to do some version control, like to go back in time, you have to do something like this. I mean, I'm pretty sure that every computer in this room has a folder with this kind of files, right? So basically here, I have, yeah? Sorry?
No, I use the versioning system.
Yeah, so you're a power user already. But anyway, I'm pretty sure you already received an email from someone with a different version of the document with the title changed, right? Even if it's not you. And obviously, this is not an efficient way to work, right? Because it just clones the document, and if you start with a document which is like 10 megabytes, and you create 5 versions on your hard drive, you have like 50 megabytes of space which is taken, which is not efficient. So apart from you, what tool can you use? You can already use on your computer, which is not especially a tech-savvy tool to solve these kind of problems, if you want to work like that. What do you use every day to do that? I'm pretty sure you know some tools.
Like Google Docs?
Yeah, so Google Docs is nice because you can edit the document inside a web browser, so you can send a link and people can collaborate directly in the document. So you don't have to go back and forth through emails, which is not efficient. So yeah, Google Doc is a nice solution for that kind of problem. What do you know else?
Dropbox, I think that you can go back.
Exactly, so Dropbox, basically it's a folder, it's like a magic folder on your computer, and everything you put in it gets synchronized with the cloud, so somewhere on the internet, on Dropbox servers. And you can share this folder with other people, so they can collaborate as well. And also you can go back in time with Dropbox. You can right-click and go to the history submenu and view different versions. Okay. So those tools are really great. They're really great for things like Word document. And basically, they answer 3 questions. One question will be when the file was modified, because you like to have a timestamp for every modification you actually save. What changed? So what's the content of the change? If you added some lines, removed some lines, and why it was changed. Like, give some context. The why here is obvious. It's like what's in parentheses. Okay? So that's those kind of metadata we want to store with each save. And when you work as a team, so when you work on Dropbox or on Google Spreadsheet or Google Document, you have several people actually working on the timeline. So when you do some saving, you're not alone. You have a team. So there is a 4th question you need to answer for a versioning tool, which is who did the change? Who actually worked on the change? So we need a tool which actually answers all these questions for every version, and that's the technical part. And we want to be able to foster teamwork. We want to be able to have a tool which easily let developer code on the same code base. And that tool for us, for developer, is Git, because we cannot really use Dropbox or Google Document to put our code in and to collaborate. What we do use are text editor. Text editor are some things like Word, but without all the fancy stuff like bold, align on left, on right, etc. So it's just text, and it has something which is called syntax highlighting, so you can easily read your code. So I will show you some code in the text editor later on. So we have basic files. It's like text files, like .txt files on our computer, and the tool will check those files and make sure we have a history tracking on those files. Okay? So we are going to use this tool. So maybe you already have installed it. It's a free tool. It's an open source tool. And to download it and set it up, you can go to this URL, download it and install it. And first, you need to configure this tool.
Sorry, I didn't see the
git-scm.com.
What does SCM mean?
I think it's like source control manager. I think SC is like source control. So we need. So the first step you do the very first time you install Git on your computer is to tell the Git who you are. So here I tell the Git my name and my email. I need that because each time I will do some snapshot, it will embed my name information into this save, so that when the team review my changes, they know that I did the change. So that's one first step of configuration. We are going to start by creating a new folder. And in this folder, we are building a simple web page. The goal is not to do some HTML and to learn some HTML tonight, but I will use this HTML page as any project you could have with developers. So let's do that. And tonight, we are going to use the command line. So for those who never saw command line on their computer, on Mac, it's something you can launch by clicking on this icon over there and typing terminal and then enter. And on Windows, it's something which is called command line prompt, I think. And if you, sorry? CMD, yeah, CMD. And if you install Git with git.scm, you should have on your desktop a shortcut that you should launch because it will load with Git already ready to use. Otherwise, you need some configuration. So here, I'm in my terminal. And in my terminal, I can write some commands to tell my computer to do stuff for me. Right now, when you want your computer to do stuff, you use your mouse or your trackpad, and you click everywhere. That's great. It's great for people who are not tech savvy, but developers tend to stick in the terminal, which was only what we got like 30 years ago. We didn't have any graphical interface, because when you are fluent with the command line tools, you are able to go way faster than using a graphical interface. So that's why we tend to stick in the terminal. So here I'm inside a folder, and I'm going to create a Git 101 folder to work in. Yes?
Question. Are we recommended to actually install it and work at the same time in parallel?
You can if you want, or you can just follow the flow. I mean, it's being recorded, so if you want to watch it later and do it later, you will be able to do it next week. So mkdir is a command to just create a folder. And then I'm going to go inside this folder with the cd command, which is change directory command. And here, I'm inside a folder, a regular folder on my computer. I can show it to you inside Finder. So here it's the folder I created. And if I go in this folder, there's nothing, obviously. Okay, so it's just an empty folder. I could have done the same by right-clicking and create a folder this way. Okay, so nothing fancy here, don't worry. So once I'm in the folder, this is my project-based directory. I will tell Git that I want to use Git to track changes inside this folder. And I can do that with the git init command. So I do my git init command, and what Git did is he created a folder which is .git. Inside, he will track every change I do. So basically, if I go back to my Finder, I don't see anything inside the Git 101 folder because it created a hidden folder. And that way, it will track everything I do. OK? Any questions so far? I just created an empty folder. OK? And now Git is ready to track what's going on in here. So what I want to do is to create an HTML file. So I can do that in a terminal with a touch command. So I create an index.html file, which for now is empty. And I will open this file inside a text editor, so a code editor. I'm using Sublime Text, which is a nice text editor. There are plenty of them out in the market. So it's having a bug right now. I don't know why. Let me fix that. OK. So I'm using Sublime Text, and I'm going to write some code inside my text editor. So for those who already know HTML, this is something not new. For the other one, well, this is the first start. So this is a basic HTML page. And what we can say is we can put some text in it, which will be coming soon. We can build a coming soon page for the Wagon, like that. So here, I created my basic HTML page with the skeleton. And I can open this page in my web browser to review what I just implemented. So let's open it with Google Chrome. And you can see this is my web page I just coded, which is like really, really simple, with the right text I wanted. OK? So what we are going to do as developers, you don't arrive at work at 9, do a bunch of code, and at 5, you save everything, and you go back home. No, you don't do that. It's a bit like when you work on a Word document. When you work on a Word document, if you open it at 9 a.m., you don't wait until 5 p.m. to actually save the file. You save it like a bunch of time, right? OK. Yeah? So here we are going to do the same. So we are going to do the same with Git commands. The first command you need to know with Git is Git status. Git status basically will tell you what has been changed inside your folder since last time. So here last time is never, because we actually never did any save. So it's telling me there is one new file. Index.html file is the new one. So what we're going to do is to,
Yeah, only one question. So I didn't install Git, but it works.
Yeah, because on Mac, by default, I think there is already a Git installed, but a really old version. So that's why it's better to install a new one. But those basic commands at least work. So for Mac users, I think you already have Git on your computer, because Apple just, publish it inside the regular OS code. So you have it. So I have this new file, index.html. And what I want to do is a snapshot of this file. A snapshot in the Git language is called a commit. So I want to do a commit. A commit is like basically a point in time where you want to go back if you have a problem, and where you will attach some information. And you must think of a commit as a two-step process. The first step will be to choose what you want to include in the commit, which files you want to include in the commit. Basically, in a project, usually you have a bunch of files, and maybe you don't want to include every change to every file inside the commit. It's a bit like, imagine you are at a wedding, and the photograph person is doing pictures, taking pictures. He's calling like friends, he's calling like family, etc. So it chooses people, and then it takes the picture. So for Git, it's exactly the same. You choose files with the git add command, and then you do the git commit message, you take the picture. OK? Sorry for the metaphor. Anyway. So what I do is I choose index.html file with the git add command, and then I can do my snapshot, I can take my picture with this command. And when I take the picture, I need to include a message. And this message is really important because in 1 month, when you review your code, you review your history, or you get a new team member on board, a new developer, those kind of message will help him understand a bit of the history of the code. And the history of the code is really useful when you have to find some bugs or implement new features. So here, what commit message could we include? What would be nice?
Init commit.
Sorry?
Init commit.
Init commit, yeah, init commit is like a convention when you do your first one. I would like to be a bit more specific, because I already did some changes in Sublime Text. So I will say that I created the basic skeleton of a web page. So I will say basic HTML skeleton for the coming soon page. Okay, so I did my commit, and now if I run git status, Git, will tell me that the working directory is clean, which basically means that there are no changes inside my folder which have not been committed yet. And that's perfectly normal because we haven't touched the file since. Okay? So let's do another change. Let's do another commit. If I go back, so I have on my desktop some images. And for instance, let's take this image, le wagon-circle.png. I will put it there, and I want to put this image inside my web page. So I will use an AMG tag, and the name of the file is le wagon.png. Okay, so I did a new line to my code. And if I refresh my page, you can see that now I have a beautiful page of a big image and a title. Okay? So if I go back to terminal and I run the git status, what will happen if you follow until now? I'm sorry? Yeah. And how many files does it impact? 2 files. Okay? There is this one file, index.html, which has changed. There was a previous commit with index.html init, and there's a new file, the image file I added to my folder. Okay? And here at this point, it could be interesting to know which line changed inside the HTML page. And for that, we have a command in Git, which is git diff. And you say git diff, and you specify which file you want to diff. And if I run this command, you can see this output, which tells me that there is a new line. So it's the green one here. I don't know if you can see. So there's the green line with a plus sign on the left, and it tells me that this is the line inserted since the last commit. So here it's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple example. But as developers, we tend to work in files which are between 50 and 100 lines of code. And usually you add stuff at different places in this file. So when you get caught up in work and after 1 hour of work, you don't really remember what you changed. So this command will help you remember. Here, obviously, I remember what I did. It was 30 seconds ago. So I know I added a new line. But as a developer, if you've been working 1 hour on a feature and you touched a bunch of files, this command is really precious. Okay? Because sometimes you just type a character in a file without really realizing, and this command will tell you, be careful, this file has changed. Okay? So I want to commit those changes. So I will add the index.html file. I will also add the picture, because it's a new file. If I run git status here, after adding those files, it will tell me that there are some changes that are ready to be committed. In fact, the green lines here are just the result of the add command. So if I run the git commit, it will include those changes inside the commit. So you remember we have to pass a message. So either you can write -- message, or there is a shortcut, which is -m. And here I would just say added le wagon's logo. Okay? I run enter, and now if I run git status, I have a working directory clear, and so I can leave work. I can leave work like that. Okay? Any questions so far? Yeah? Okay. I'm not sure if you're silent because you don't understand anything, or if you understand everything and it's too slow. Let's go on. Don't hesitate to ask any question. I'm here for that. There's another command which is interesting, which is git log, and it will show you a nice history of what you did inside Git. So if I go back to the terminal and I run git log, here you can see that I have 2 commits. And for each commit, I have actually I have 3 informations. First one is the name of the author of the commit. So here it's all me, but when you work as a team, obviously you have several names. There's the time of the commit. So here it's like 7:28, and there's the commit message I put. Okay. There's a nice way to configure this log to be less verbose, and it's not by default inside Git, but I have a shortcut which I can share with you on Meetup later on, which is git lg. And if I run git lg, I have something like that, and it's far prettier, especially if you have really a long list of commits. And here I have just 1 line per commit. I have a relative timestamps instead of an absolute timestamp. And I have the author and the commit message. And maybe I can show you for another project of mine what it will output if you have a bunch of commits, because here 2 commits are not really interesting. So if I go to the repository of the main website for Le Wagon, which is www.lewagon.com, if I run git lg, I get something like that. So you can see a lot of commits. You can see that I'm doing some work, but I'm not the only one. There is Boris as well. Okay, and you can, like scroll down or scroll up to review the commits. Okay?
Sorry, and
yeah.
How do you get the LG command?
The LG command, it's not by default. I can show you what the actual command is quite quickly. What is that? Okay, so this is this command here. Okay, so it's git log, but with some arguments that you have to pass. So I can run this command if you want. If you want this one, it will work on your computer. It does the same, but it's like pretty long to type and to memorize, so we just put an alias for it, and you just run git lg. Okay, a lot of developers have this alias in their Git configuration. Basically, in Git you have this file, which is the git config file that you put on your computer, and you can customize commands for Git. So if you have long command you run a lot, you can just squeeze them to an alias. So here, for instance, the git status, I can just run a git st, and I get a git status with some arguments. But right now, I'm using the full commands because you don't have the shortcuts on your computer. Basically, developers are really lazy. If you can remove 2 or 3 keystrokes from your daily workflow, they will do it. I mean, it's like a few seconds gain, but we like to do that. Anyway, any comment on the git log? No? Okay, let's talk about branching. So right now, there is like this continuous timeline, which it's going from the past to the future, and it doesn't change. Okay? What we want to do is, as developers, we tend to work on features or on bugs, and basically we don't want everybody to work in the same timeline. what we want to do is to branch at some point the timeline and to work in parallel dimension, I would say, where you don't step on each other's foot. And this is really easy with Git. That's one main reason to choose Git as a versioning tool when you're a CTO and you have to choose between, I don't know, Git, SVN, Perforce, etc. All these tools which do the same thing. Git is great at branching. So it's a bit like Back in the Future. If you remember the movie, they go back in time and they change something, so the new reality is different. Okay, so it's a bit like that. So at some point, I do a branch, and I will work in this new reality, in this new branch, and do some commits, okay, do my work, and other people won't see me. And at some point, if my work is fine, it's great, it can be merged back into the master, into the main timeline, the official one. So we will first create the branch with the git branch command. So the dots here are commits, okay? We have 3 commits. And once I'm in the branch, I can do commits as well, which are not in the main timeline anymore. So I work in my branch, it's great, okay? And at some point, I want to merge it back to master. So if we are going to merge it back to master, why do we bother create branches in the first place? What's your opinion on that? Why do we have this complicated process if, in the end, everything goes back to master?
Do not pollute a master repository, because if it will become like if you push something which is unfinished, probably your build is unstable.
Yeah.
Or you push something unfinished with some comments, and like a bad code which is supposed to be refactored and all that stuff. So you just finish it in your branch and then you merge it.
Yeah, basically that's that. The idea is that to complete a feature, maybe you will need like 2 or 3 days and several commits. And if you commit every night what you did on master and it's not finished, this code in master is like the official one. It's like the one which can be pushed to production, which can be run on the server. And if this code has some of your unfinished work, it's a bad thing. It may have bugs, etc. So we work in isolated environments, which are branches. And once it's ready for production, I would say, then we can merge it back. And you can iterate that on every developer on the team. So basically, every developer at one point in time is working on a specific feature. So everybody has one branch. At least one branch, because I may be working on several features at once. For instance, my product manager tells me I want to change the color of the button on the landing page. So I create the branch, new landing page color button. And I work on it, I change the color, but I need the product manager to give me feedback if it's the right color or not. So I send in an email and I'm waiting for him or her to answer me. So what do? Do I wait, like doing nothing? No, I can just go in the issue tracker on project management and take the next feature or next bug to fix. So I create a new branch. And you see that one developer can work in several branches at once. Okay? And once you get the answer from the product manager with the right color, then you can go back to your branch, finish your work, etc. Make sense? So let's do that. What I want to do is to fix this ugly page. And I would like maybe to center everything. You know, like center everything as the logo a bit smaller and change the font of the H1. So let's do that, and let's do that in a branch. So I will first create the branch which will be center elements. I want to center everything horizontally and vertically. So I create this branch. To review which branches are currently in the project, I can also run the git branch command with no arguments, and it will list all the branches in your project, and it will put a little star and in green for for the current branch, the branch on which you are. To change branch, to go to another branch, I have the checkout command. And here, I can go to this new branch. And you can see that my prompt, I mean, you know the stuff on the left of the caret is stating my branch. This is some configuration I have on my computer. This is not default behavior. But it's really useful because even without running the git branch command, at all time, I know on which branch I am. So here I am on the git branch, on the center elements branch, sorry. And I will do some coding. So let's go back to Sublime Text. And so what we can do is create a style.css file in which we're going to put some CSS style. I need to link this CSS with my index.html file with this line. And for instance, now I can change the default margin of the body elements. I can also change the font family and say I want some Helvetica. So let's do that. Let's check in our browser if it works. So you can see now the text is not in Times New Roman anymore, right? What I can do as well is to put a container around these elements, and I will put some styling on the container. So what I can do, so yeah, before that, something simpler. I want to reduce the size of the logo. So I will say the logo is like, I don't know, like 80 pixels and 80 pixels per 80 pixels, like that. So let's do that. Okay, so now the image is way smaller. And what I can do is use some CSS magic for centering. Again, I'm going fast on the CSS part. This is not the goal of the topic. Okay, almost. Okay, so now I get my coming soon page. Okay, and if I want the text underneath the image, I can do it as well. Should work. No, not this one. Sorry. Yeah, I can put a better element. Doesn't work as. Ah oui. Okay. Okay, wait. So I'm happy with my page now. You can see that it's responsive. It works on mobile, etc. Anyway, I want to do some commit. So I go back to the terminal, and which command do I run now? It will be the third time tonight, so I hope you have it now. So which command? Which first command should I run? Yeah, git status. Git status will tell me index.html has changed, and there's a new file, the CSS file. CSS is for styling the page. Okay, so let's look at what's changed inside the HTML page with the git diff command. And here you have some changes. You can see that red lines are being removed and green lines are being added. In Git, there's no concept of modifying a line. When you modify a line in Git, you remove it and then you add a new one. So here we remove the headline and put 3 lines instead. And we removed 2 lines and put 4 lines instead, even if we just wrapped the EMG and the H1 tags inside the container div. Okay, you can see the difference. So if you work a lot in a file and don't commit often, the diff will be really, really painful to read because you will have a bunch of stuff which changed. That's why you need to commit a lot of time. Like every time you're happy with your work. Here, I'm happy, I just commit. Okay, so git status, git diff. Now I actually want to do the commit. What are the 2 steps? First one, git add, yeah. So I add index.html. I also add the style.css file which I created. And now I can run the git commit message. Center the image and tagline. Okay, and now if I run my git status command, you can see that everything is clean, so there is no pending changes on my folder. Okay? So, right now we are here. We created a commit on the branch, and we're happy with our work, so we want to merge it back inside the master branch. So that's something we are going to do in 2 steps. The first one, we are going to go back to the master branch with the git checkout command. And then we're going to merge our branch with the git merge command. And here I included a git diff command with some special arguments. And here it's really helpful. It shows you the difference between 2 branches. Because when you have a bunch of commits on each branch, sometimes you want to compare 2 branches. And that's quite useful. What I can show you is before merging, let's say I have another ID. I want to change, no, let's do that, let's do that later, sorry. Let's finish the merging. So, what I told you, I go back to the master. So now if I refresh my page, what happens? In your opinion?
Go back.
Yeah, I get the old page. You see, that's quite powerful. If I go back to the branch, so I have 2 branches now. If I go back to the center elements branch and I reload, I get this feature. So I can switch back and forth between the branch to show my team, for instance, my actual work. Okay? So I am in master, and I want to merge the other branch onto master. So take the commits of this branch and put them on master. And I will do that with the git merge command. So there is an argument you don't really need to remember, but we need that for later on GitHub. And I will say, OK, this is the branch I need to merge. And now I am on master, and if I reload, I have the changes from the branch. So what should I do with the branch now? What's your opinion on that? I'm sorry?
Save it somewhere.
Save the branch? Any other idea?
Push it and open a pull request finally.
I'm sorry.
Push it to GitHub.
Push the branch. I mean, here the branch is basically the work you did in the branch is in master now. So we don't need the branch anymore. You can just remove it. In fact, we will remove the branch, but we just remove the label. We won't remove the commits and the work we did. Once a branch has been merged into master, you can consider it dead. It's done. I mean, you did the work in it, and once it's in master, you don't have to do anything in it anymore.
But
Yes.
if you want to go back, you say, no, I want to go back.
Once it's been merged, I won't say it's too late, but in Git you can do anything. In Git you can remove commits, etc. You can play with the history, but at some point you have to agree with your team on a workflow. And here, when I tell you it's dead, you don't go back, etc., it's our workflow at Le Wagon, and it's also a workflow that a lot of startups use, including GitHub. So you could do anything, any idea you might have, but at some point, people just sat together and said, OK, there are some things we don't do, otherwise it's too complicated. So once it's been merged, if you want to do some modification, you create a new branch from this point, do your modification and merge it back. OK? Because we will see that later. There is like a review process here. So when it's in the branch, you want your teammates to have feedback and input on what you're doing. So here there are some review going on, code reviews going on, and we will see how we can do that with GitHub. But once you merge it, you can consider that everybody signed off and it's done. Okay? Otherwise, it's a new feature, or it's a new bug, and you start over. You create a new branch, and it's the same process over and over. Okay? So here we are going to remove the branch with the git branch -d command. And now if I run git branch again, you can see there is only master on my Git repository. Okay? And we just start over. If you have a new feature, you recreate a branch, etc., etc. And basically that's it. With all that commands, so git status, git diff if you want to see what's changed, then git add and commit to actually do a commit, git checkout and git branch to change branches, you have like 99% of what you need to know about Git to start using it. There are plenty of other commands for advanced users, but on a daily use, that's just what you need. Okay? So right now, all we did was on our computer. We could have done it without any internet connection. You could have done it in the plane, in the train, anywhere. But your code is just on your computer. So if you lose your computer, you lose your code, and you don't share it with your teammates. So we need to introduce the concept of remote. A remote is a place where you're going to push your code to share it and to save it, actually. So on the left, you have your computer, and on the right, you have your remote server. And a remote server can be anything, but what we use as developers is we use services to play the role of the remote. And those services, the big one is GitHub. We are going to talk about it. And there are some alternatives. There are, for instance, Bitbucket or GitLab. And basically, it's just servers in the cloud where you can push your Git repository to. Okay? What's nice is once the code is on GitHub, your team can get it. So you see there is like this movement forward and backward of code, and in the Git, in a Git terminology, we call that a push or a pull. So when you push your code, you're pushing your commits. You have done some work on your computer, and you just push it to GitHub. And when you arrive in the morning, you want to retrieve what's been done since last night, and you will run a git pull command to retrieve commits from your colleagues. Sometimes the git pull command won't return anything because nobody has worked. Sometimes it will return some stuff. Okay, so there is a remote where you push your code and pull code from. Let's create a remote. To create a remote, we can go to GitHub with a GitHub account and create a new project. And let's do that. So I'm already signed in on GitHub. Obviously, I have an account. And here is the form to create a new project. So I will create the Git 101 repository. I can put a small description if I want. And here, on this very page, you have the GitHub business model. Their business model, it's free if your code is public, if it's open sourced. But if you want to hide your code and have closed source code, then you have to pay. Okay? That's for GitHub. The alternatives I told you about, the competitor, as GitHub is really, really well known and like a leader, they have to compete, and they compete on price. So basically, if you want your code to remain private, Bitbucket and GitLab offers private repositories for free. So for Bitbucket, I think it's limited to maybe 5 collaborators, something like that. So that's their way to fight against GitHub, I would say. Here we don't really care because we are doing just basic workshop thing. We are just going to host it as open source code. And actually, a lot of code at Le Wagon is open source. We also have some closed source code, but the majority of code is open source. So let's create it. So we create the repository. And what's important here is not to tick this box. If you tick this box, it will run the git init command for you. And if you remember the beginning of the talk, that's the first command we ran. So you don't want GitHub to run the git init command for you. It will mess up with your configuration. Okay? So here we already have a Git repository, so we don't tick the box. Okay. And now I have a brand new repository. What's nice is that GitHub gives me the 2 commands I should run to set my remote on my local repository. So if I go to my terminal and I run git remote, you can see that it yields nothing. I have no remote configured for this project. Now if I run this command, git remote add, you can see that I have a new remote configured, so that I will be able to push some code. So now I can run command like git push and something. Usually you just write git push origin master. What does it mean? Git push means send commits to somewhere. This somewhere is the first argument, which is origin, and origin by convention is the origin repo, so it's going to be GitHub. But you could have several remotes on your repository. For instance, if you use Heroku as a platform as a service deployment tool, you would have a Heroku remote. So when you run git push origin master, you're pushing your code to GitHub. And when you run git push Heroku master, you're pushing your code to production. So basically, you're deploying your code. And master, what's master, in your opinion? Why do I put master? Yeah, it's the name of the branch on which we are right now. Because basically, we will be able to push any branch we want. So here, when I say git push origin master, in English, it will say push the commits of the master branch to GitHub. So I do that. So here, I need to specify my username because obviously, I need to be logged in to push stuff. It's not just anybody which can push some code onto my repository. But here I want to use I can log in. It's just that I don't know my GitHub password. So let me retrieve it. Okay. Okay, it's working. So if I go back to the GitHub page and I reload the page, now I can see my code. So now my code is hosted on GitHub. So you can see that there are 4 commits. So if I click here, I can see all the commits I've been doing since the beginning of the workshop. Okay. For each commit, I can review what has been changed. So for instance, the second commit was about adding an image. So you have this line plus the image. So this is a visualization of one commit. And I can have a nice graph of my branches. So here, you have all the commits on master, master being the black branch. And at some point, I created a blue branch, which was named center elements, which got merged into master. And now there's no name attached to it because I deleted the branch. But it's still here, you know? The structure of the Git commits are here. It's just the labels, the branch names disappeared. So any comment on that part
So
before we move on? Yeah.
Here, basically, in this, can you go back?
Here, okay.
So here you will have a graphical representation of the status of how many branches, like for instance, if there is 10 people working, and what has happened in the last weeks. You will see.
Yeah. So if you've been working for 1 year, you have like 1 year timeline, and you can drag and drop from left to right, and to see what's changed. So I can show you maybe the branch model for, again, the WW repository of Le Wagon, which has more commits, obviously. And it looks like that. So if I go back in time, I can see all the branch and work which has been done. So you can see this pattern where you have this black line, which is the master branch. And every time we had to work on something, we created a branch, worked in the branch, and merged it back. And you can see that we are quite okay in respecting this rule, but sometimes we don't. We just commit on master because we are too lazy to create this branch. So for instance, here, there's a commit which has not been done in a branch, and it's me. Okay, so I can see which developer in my team are lazy, so me, obviously.
So then you can have a branch of a branch, right?
You could have a branch of a branch. Here, there's one, for instance. Or here. That's something which is quite advanced and is sometimes required. For instance, imagine you have a very long-lived feature to work on, something which will take you 1 month. You create a branch for this feature, and it will be like a bis master, a master 2. And you work on it, you create branch from it, and you merge back into this second master. And once this big branch is ready, you merge it back to the official master. So you could have setups like that. Here we don't really use that because we try to push to production code as soon as it's ready. And we try to do really small increments of code and make sure we can work on features which don't take more than a day to be implemented. Sometimes you cannot do that, so you have to cope with it. But here it's really a nice tool, graphical tools for GitHub to show you this information. And actually we already had it in the terminal. Here when I show you that, so you have the, you know, it's like a 90 degrees rotation of this graph. And you have the master line and branches coming on the right. Okay? But here it's like
Which one do you use? Do you go terminal?
I use both, in fact. Sometimes I go to GitHub, sometimes I just, when you are in your terminal, you just have to run git lg and you get your result right away. So it's quite painful to open a browser, go to the right page, etc. But sometimes I prefer this interface for looking into specific stuff. So I take the time to do it. It really depends on what I'm achieving. I have both tools and I choose which tool is better for what I'm looking for. Any other question?
What is the fork function that I hear a lot?
We'll cover the fork function later on in the workshop.
It's like branch stuff as well.
It's related, but we will talk about that. Any other question on GitHub?
So
We're going to, yeah, please.
So I guess that this is useful when you work with people, right? But if you work in your own, is this worth it?
Yes, that's a very good question. So when you work alone, you should do exactly as if there were people on your team, because the developer you will be in 1 month will be a stranger. He will be someone who completely ignore why you took this decision 1 month ago. And it's true. It's like every day on the code you have to take decisions, and if you don't document them as you go, you just confuse 1 month later. So my advice is that really don't trust yourself, don't trust your memory. Just use the tools. Write down on the moment when you do a commit, write a useful commit message, because in 1 month you will thank your old self from doing that. So even when I'm working alone on some freelance projects, I use this exact same workflow, even if I know that nobody will be working with me. But that's a good question. If you're allergic to the command line, that can be allergic to the command line, you can also use applications, graphical interface application with your mouse. And there is one which is available and free at desktop.github.com. And I can show you a bit how it's working. So I will just launch it. Sorry for that. Okay. So I can take my Git 101 folder and drag and drop it inside GitHub, and you see I have all my commits. And for each commit, I can review directly in the tool what's been changed. And I can also do the commits directly in the tool. So for instance, if I go back to my page and I want to change the font height of the H1, I want to put some lighter font, I go back to Sublime Text. and I will say, okay, let's use font weight of 100, which is the latest one. And if I hit reload, doesn't work. Sorry. I think I have to put it on the H1 for it to work. Yes. Okay. So I did some change in the code. If I go back to GitHub, you see that he saw the change. He saw that the style.css file has been changed. He's showing me the git diff right away, and I can commit here directly. So basically, the git add command is just ticking or unticking a checkbox. Okay, so that's git add, and the git commit will be writing a message and clicking on commit. So lighter weight for title font, for instance. And if I click on commit, I just did a commit here. And if I want to push it to master, there is the publish button on the top right. I click on publish, and my change gets pushed to GitHub. So it's the same as git push origin master. So if I go back to the GitHub page, and I go to the code page, now I have 5 commits with the one I just did. Okay? So basically, you can also use Git without any terminal, just with the graphical interface. Okay? So, any question on that? Let's talk about GitHub. So, you can view GitHub as a website on top of Git. It's a nice way in your browser to browse code, to review some code. It's nice to discover code. A lot of developers use GitHub to showcase their work. So they build some library or some code they're proud of, and they put it on the internet, and anyone can use it. And for a developer, it's a bit like a portfolio, in fact. So the first thing you should know about GitHub, it's like a social network for developers. It's somewhere where everybody has a profile page, and on the profile page, you don't have like your photos or I don't know, events you go to, etc. It's not Facebook, but it's a page where you have your code. So here I took the page of DHH, which is the creator of Ruby on Rails, a great web application framework that we teach at Wagon. And I can explain to you how I read those kind of pages. It's useful if you want to recruit a developer. So when you're recruiting someone, obviously you ask for a resume and a cover letter, but a developer, you can also ask a GitHub profile if he has one. Not everybody has the time to work on open source projects, obviously, but for those who have open source projects, it's a good plus. So what do I look for? So here on the left, popular repository means the repositories that this guy owns, the projects he created. And they are popular because there is a star system. Any developer sign up to GitHub can go to any project, and if he likes the code, for instance, if it's a library and you use it and you want to say thanks to the developer, you can star the project. It's like a bookmark, in fact. And if a lot of people do that, your project gets really high. So here, I just have 1 star on this project, and David has like 500, but 500 is a good number. But you have projects who have way more stars. For instance, the Rails project has 30,000 stars. You have other projects like Bootstrap, which is a CSS framework to help you build prototypes. If you want to load. Yeah, so Twitter Bootstrap has something like 95,000 stars now. So you can see that it's a good way to see if a project is popular and if you should use it or not. I will go back to that in a few minutes. So here, David has quite a lot of stars on his projects. And on the right, those are the projects he doesn't own, but on which he contributes, on which there is some code, which is his code. So obviously, Rails is a big committer on Rails because he created it and he did a lot of the work. And there are some libraries on the right on which he worked. And this is just a summary. In fact, you can go to the repositories tab, and you will see all the projects in which David has some code in. So that's a good way to assess if a developer is experienced, what kind of language he knows, and to actually go look at the code. If the code is well written, well commented, if you can, if you're a developer, you can judge the code if the code is well written and if you want the guy on the team. For instance, on any project, you would want to have a nice description of the project in nice English, etc., so that the developer, you can see that the developer put on some effort to explain why the project is open source and what the project is doing. Yes?
Yeah, so the Bootstrap is an open source because I mean it's a platform, right? That you have to pay.
No. Bootstrap is a CSS framework. It's an open source project. You can download and use it for free. And it's been created by two guys at Twitter, which are no longer working at Twitter, but it's still on the. I mean, no, now it's like a new organization. It's not Twitter anymore. Yeah, but any code on GitHub on the MIT license, for instance, can be used for free, and you can use it. There is a license in open source world which is a GPL license, which is we call that contaminating, which means that if you use it, your own software has to follow this license. So you cannot include the GPL license into proprietary software. But otherwise, a lot of people put software in the MIT license or Apache license, which are licenses where basically you can do anything with it. You can use it in your project. There's a lot of free code and free stuff you can already use and build upon, which is cool. Okay, here you have a nice graph of like the latest 365 days of the guy. So you can see when he takes vacation. So basically, every time there's a green square, it means there was some activity. So activity could be a commit or anything happening on GitHub. I can show you mine because I have a better one. I've been working more. So this is mine. Anyway. So this is a profile page. Any question on the profile page?
On the like individual projects, it says it has like 600 collaborators.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a profile. This is the repo page, and I will go to that in a moment. But any question on the profile page? No, pretty straightforward. So let's go to the repository page. Basically, a repository page is always github.com/organization or username/project name. Here, this is the repository page of the website lewagon.com. So this is this website. So our website is open sourced. You can go tonight and look at the code if you want. This is the repo page. This is the page where we store the code. And you're right, so let's start with that. On the right, you have the contributors. So basically the guy who has been working on the project. So first you can see like a timeline of how many commits, how many work we put on the website. And you can see that we worked really hard in November last year. But since then, we didn't really do a lot of stuff. And then you have contributors sorted by number of commits. So there's me, there's Thomas, who was our designer. There's Boris, which is the founder, one of the founders of Le Wagon, Romain as well, and some people, so some former students who found some mistakes on the website and contributed. So they took the code, did some change, and sent it back to us. So that's something which is great with open source. When you have a library that you use, you can put it on GitHub, and anybody can start using it. And if they find some bugs, or if they want some more features inside your library, they will write the code on their own, and they will push back to you the code. And if you want to accept it, you can. And requests can come from anyone in the world, which is kind of amazing. So I do that. Sometimes I use a library and there's something which is not working as I want it to do. So I just take the code, I do some changes, I make sure it works on my side, and I push back the code to the original author, and he decides if he wants to take my code or not. This is really open source working really well with GitHub.
So you develop new branch of it. So you fork the code.
Yeah,
is that what
yeah,
you fork?
I will arrive to that. Yeah, I do a fork exactly. So what can you look for when you arrive on a page like that? So basically, obviously there's the code. So you have the folders and files. So if I open this file, for instance, it's a Ruby file in which it specifies all the open source external library I use inside my project. So as a Ruby developer, I can read that and I can understand how this product is built. So let's not focus on that part. Under the code, you will have what we call a README. A README is a piece of text which explains to the world what this repo is about. And basically, I use this README for my team. And what I do is I explain to them basics. It's like a really small tutorial to get the app up and running on your computer. So if I get a new member on my team, a new engineer, he can read the README and he can set up the website to start working on it without asking me. Because if one guy asks me and I repeat over and over the same thing, it's painful, so I just prefer to write it down and let other developers just read it. And obviously, if they have questions, they can ask me and we iterate over the README so that it gets better and better. That's exactly what people like the people behind Bootstrap do. There is a big README which explains, there's a quick start, they explain how it's built, there's a policy for bugs and feature requests, because obviously as so much people are using it and so much people are reporting the bugs, you need a standardized way of doing it. So there's some information about that. They explain where you can find the documentation of the library, etc., etc. So this part is really important to communicate to other developers who might want to contribute to your project. If we go back, you have some tabs and you have some stuff we can explore. There is an issues tab. Basically, GitHub gives you for free an issue tracker, which is kind of a project management tool where every time you have a bug for a project, you can put it in there. So you don't have to use an external tool to do your issue tracking. Everything is there. You can choose not to use it also. If you want to use Trello or Jira or Pivotal Tracker or any tool you want, you can do, but here GitHub gives you something. We do use it. So how does it work? Yeah, no, sorry. So yeah, there are issues. There's something which is called pull requests, and pull requests are really, really important. Pull requests are, if you remember from the previous slide, when you are at this step, your code is inside a branch and it's not been merged yet, you want feedback from your team. You want to say to your team, hey, here's a new branch, here's a new code. Can you read the code and can you give me some feedback? And that's what you're going to do in a pull request. A pull request is like the worst name ever for a product. It should be named code review. Everybody understands code review. Anyway, GitHub's name is pull request. So if we take this one, for instance, there's no link, sorry for that. So, okay. So this is a pull request I submitted 15 days ago. And I wanted to add on Le Wagon, the website, a nice map with an icon where we are located. Okay? So here this is a Paris map, and we are in the 11th district. And so I just took a screenshot of what I did, and I created this pull request, and I told my team, so here's my feature. Can you review the code? And basically, that's what they did. So on a pull request, you have 3 tabs. The first one is the conversation going on the code. The second one is the list of commits inside the branch. So here I did 3 commits. And the most important one is the files changed tab. And basically, it shows you a diff of what changed. So here, a bunch of image change. So we moved some dots on the logo. I added this new icon. I added some JavaScript to handle including the Google Maps inside the web page. I also added some CSS to make it look good. So this is my branch with the code. And basically what Boris did, so Boris is a member of the team, he reviewed the code. And what can any developer on my team do? And actually, as this project is open source, anyone in the world with a GitHub account, is that, for instance, if this line doesn't please you, you can click on it and write something down. And you can give feedback to your team. And it's really quality feedback because you can just pinpoint one specific line and say, oh, this is bad. And I use it every day with my team. And I have 2 junior developers with me. And it's a way for me to teach them because they do some code, they submit it, and I review the code line by line, and I will give them feedback for every line and ways to emphasize and to make a better product. And so they learn, and they get better and better. So code review takes some time to do, but they are so much valuable that it's really a no-brainer for any team. And you can do fancy stuff like if you want to put emojis, you can, You can also put some code directly. Like for instance, if I put some JavaScript, you can get a nice rendering, etc. So there is a syntax right inside the comments, which is Markdown, which is a grand syntax to produce comments with this graphic quality. So that's what teammates will do. They will comment on the code. And actually, I can show you the comments from Boris. So here, on this line, he told me to move the code to a dedicated JavaScript file. And here, he told me to move the code somewhere else. Okay? So he had noticed that the code, actually, I was lazy. I did some implementation. It worked. And I didn't refactor the code. I didn't push to make it the best code possible. It was an OK code. And with the review, it went to the best possible code. So in the end, there is like a merge button. Something, maybe I can show you a pull request which is happening right now, which has not yet been merged. So this is one pull request that one of my engineers submitted today. So I did some comment on it. And here you see I have this merge pull request button. And if I click on it, the branch will be merged onto master. So I don't have to run any command. It's GitHub which does the work for me. And obviously, I will click on the merge button only when the comments I put have been addressed. Okay? So inside the GitHub tool, you have a great code review tool to produce the best code possible. Make sense? Any question on this process? Yeah.
So if the master is actually live, I mean, it's actually used for other people, so or you actually work here with one master and then you send.
So the workflow here, we can do it with our website. So let's say I'll be working in a new branch. So I create the branch, like let's say red background. So red background, I go to the branch and I do some changes. So I will say my body now will be with a new background color. Okay, something like that. Maybe something more readable. Up. Okay, so I have this new feature. So I will commit my changes inside the branch where I am not on the right repository. I'm in www. Okay, so let's switch repository. So the branch was red background. Okay, so if I run the git status command, you see that Git has picked up the change on style.css file. If I git diff it, I can see the 2 lines have been added. Great, so I can run the commit. So git add style and git commit, red background. And I will push. This time, I won't push master. I will push my branch because I want it to be reviewed by my peers with the pull request tool on GitHub. Okay? So I just run git push origin and the name of the branch. So, okay. Okay, so now if I go back to GitHub, on the page repository, you see that GitHub is really smart. Without reloading my page, I get this nice yellow band, and it says, okay, there is a new branch. Do you want to create a pull request on this branch? So I click on it, and here I can start the conversation with my team, and I can tell them, oh, this is a new feature I've been working on. This is a new bug I fixed. Please review my code. I can also attach any screenshot which might be useful. And what I like to do as well is to record a small GIF of what I do. For instance, if there is a feature you need to click on the menu, etc., I just record that and I insert inside the pull request so that when my team reviews the code, they don't have to download it, to run it on their computer to see the result, which is really, really nice. So recording, we can do it now if you wish. It's really easy. There is the Record It application on Mac. So let's record. So I say I want to record this part of the screen. Okay. I click here and it's recording. So let's just move the mouse. There's nothing to do here, but you get the gist. And I stop. So now it's uploading the GIF onto their server. And I can go back to my pull request and insert the GIF with this syntax. And if I preview it now, I mean, in a few minutes, I don't know when it's going to be ready. Okay, so if I click on GIF, yeah, so this URL, I can insert it inside the pull request, and I can create my pull request with this GIF. So it's quite silly here, but you get what I wanted to do. Okay? So now my team receive an email. They can go to this page, review the feature I did, and they will go back. They will go to this page, review the code, maybe put some comments, and once everything is fine, I just click on the merge pull request. Make sense?
Yeah, but the thing is, when you click the pull request and you do it on the master.
So let's do it.
Yeah, but so the thing is, but do you update the one of the server?
So here, do I push in production?
Yeah.
So here, what I did was just to merge the feature branch into the master branch. And actually, I can delete the feature branch now. And if I go to the code, you can see that there is a new commit, this one. So there was a red background, and this one has been created by GitHub because I clicked on the merge button. So if I go to my graph network, I can see my change. If I reload the page, you can see the second feature branch I just did. So now the master has been updated, but not my own computer. If I go back here I don't have the master updated. So as a developer, what I should do is to go back to master and to pull this time to get this new commit. And now I'm up to date. But the code has been changed on GitHub on your computer, but right now there's nothing to be put in production or automated thing in place. Actually, that's something I covered last night in another workshop. But anyway, you can put in place some automation, so that when you click on the merge button, your code gets deployed somewhere into production. You can go to this step.
Is that with Heroku?
Yeah. Heroku will be where you push the code, and then you will need a tool to do the pushing automatically. But here we just focus on building the code and not where we want to run it. Okay? So forks, let's cover it quite quickly. Imagine let's say I'm on Rails. So this is Rails, and I find a bug in Rails, which is highly unlikely anyway. I'm not good enough. I want to contribute, fix the bug. So I cannot push code directly to Rails. I cannot just get the code, create a branch, and push my branch directly to their repo. Because only a few people in the world can actually push code to this repository. And it makes sense, otherwise it will be a nightmare. So first I need to create an exact copy of the code, but on my own profile, where I can push something. So I will just create a fork, and I will fork it to my own profile. So we will just take everything, every commit from Rails on my profile. So now the repository is my username / Rails. And so it takes some time, obviously, because there's a bunch of files to copy. And when it's ready, I will be able to get the code on my computer, create a branch on my computer, work on it, fix the bug, push my branch back to this repository, and create a pull request from my repository to the official one. So that's something quite easy to do. Let's do it. So let's say, this time we use the git clone command that you haven't seen yet, but basically it's when you already have a GitHub project, someone created something and you want to get it on your computer. You don't run the git init command, you just run the git clone. Git init has already been run 10 years ago by someone. So I didn't anticipate it was going to take so much time, so we won't do it. But anyway, here I will just follow the same workflow, create a branch, go back to GitHub, and create the pull request. But instead of merging on my own master, on my profile, I will ask people from the Rails project to merge it on their official master. And that way, I will contribute quite easily to open source if I find the bug. And actually, that's something, if I have some time, I can just go to the issue tracker in Rails. You can see that there are more than 400 bugs or feature requests. So it's a lot. Hopefully, you have some filters. So for instance, you can filter by milestones. Basically, milestones are just version number. So for instance, if I want to work on the 500 milestone, I just go there, and here I just have four features, and I could just look at the conversation between developers to understand what's going on, how to fix it, if I can help or not. And usually I can't. Anyway, that everything is happening in public. Every discussion on the Rails project is public, and you can review anything and jump in at any time. So here, if I want to give my 2 cents, I can just put a comment on the Rails project, even if I am not a committer. Okay? And that's what developers do all day, to just contribute, even if you don't know each other. GitHub allows you to quickly jump in and participate to the conversation. A nice thing, which is really nice, that you may want to know is, if you already have a web page, I assume that you purchased a domain name somewhere, and you also purchased some hosting, and you are paying for hosting just to host a static website. Well, with GitHub, you can host a static website for free with something which is called GitHub Pages, which is really, really efficient. And basically, it's really simple. You just have to go to your Git repository and create a special branch, which is called GH Pages. So I do that. So to create a branch and go to it directly, you can run the git checkout -b command instead of git branch and then git checkout. And if I git push this branch, so obviously when you, here I wanted to use the simplest version, but you can store your password so that it doesn't ping you every time there is a setup to do that correctly, but I didn't do it tonight. Anyway, so now I push the GH Pages branch, and if I go to my username, so basically if I go to my username, github.io / the repo name, I will have my website hosted for free. So here it's this. So let's go to this URL. And you can see my website. And it works because I created an indexed.html file. If I create an about.html file, and I just put hello, this is about, and some paragraph with random stuff, and I commit that. So okay, so now so if I reload and I go to the about.html page, so just wait a few minutes. Sometimes it takes some time to just reload, but you have to trust me on this one, it will work. Anyway, the index worked right away, but sometimes it takes some minutes for GitHub to just compile the stuff. So that's really nice. Any static website, even with a huge traffic, can be hosted for free on GitHub, and you save a lot of money because you just have to buy the domain name and route it to GitHub. Okay? You don't have to stick with the github.io domain name. You can have your own domain name. And actually, if you've looked here, you can see this is my own domain name. So it's mapping automatically because I did some DNS setting with my domain name. If you don't know about that, that's okay. You can just stick with the github.io page. Okay?
I mean, if you've got two different developers who check out two separate branches, do you ever end up with a conflict?
Yeah.
So how does Git deal with that?
Yeah, so basically if you have a, let's create a conflict. It's really easy. Let's go back to master. So you have developer 1 in the allez, yellow branch, okay? And this guy, he wants to change the background to yellow. Okay? So he does that. It's yellow. Painful. Anyway, so the guys will do a commit of this line, right? So yellow background. And okay, perfect. In the meantime, so at the same time, okay, the other developer starts from the same point, from master, and creates, let's say, a blue branch. And in this branch, it chooses to have a blue background. So it's working. Okay? Again, the style.css file has been changed, so I want to commit it. Blue background. Okay, so let's go back to master. Let's say the yellow branch gets merged first. So let's do that. Let's skip the GitHub pull request process. Let's do that directly in the command line. So git merge the yellow branch. All good. Okay? Yellow branch worked. I'm on master. If I reload the page, my background is yellow. Now, if I want to merge the blue page from the second developer, I get a conflict. And it makes sense because Git doesn't know how to merge those files. Because on the one hand, you have something which says yellow, and on the other hand, it says blue. So if we go, how do we solve this conflict? If we go to the style.css file, you can see that Git changed a bit our file. And it tells, OK, so on the head branch, on master, it's yellow. And what you wanted to do on the branch was blue. And how do we solve this conflict? Yeah, it's communication. I mean, you ask your teammate, why did you put yellow, and
Can you put conditions like
No.
this developer
No.
has priority on the other in case of?
no. Here it's just a human problem. It's a communication problem. There are in Git some options where you override, like let's always override this guy, but you don't use that. You just, if there is a conflict, there is a good reason. So you have to talk to your team members and agree on something. So let's say we stick with the yellow. So I edit the file, and here to acknowledge my change, I will do the same process of committing, because a merge in the end is just a commit. So I will add the style.css file, which was in conflict, and I will run a commit. And now master is clean, there's no more conflict, and we chose the yellow background. Okay? And you do that with any conflict you might have on the code. Here it's quite simple, just one line. Sometimes you have conflicts on huge chunks of code, so it's harder to work with. And the way you avoid conflict is to create tiny branches. So once you've created a branch, you want to get it merged as fast as possible, so that people can branch again from the new master. If you work on a branch for several days, you're pretty sure that you'll get conflicts when you try to merge it back to master. But if you work a few hours and master didn't change a lot, then you won't get any conflict. Okay? But here it's more a matter of communication in the team rather than a matter of tool. Okay? Any other question? Yeah.
Can you do any kind of code? Like if I want to publish an iPhone app, can I just run the code?
Yeah, so basically Git is a tool for any text-based application. So here I'm storing CSS, HTML, JavaScript. I'm also storing images, so you can also store any file. But if you want to work, let's say you're an editor in a newspaper, you could use those tools to edit your articles and have some kind of review process and history. Any text file works really well with Git, because in the end, code is just text file. So you don't have to use Git with code. You can use it for anything. And actually, that's the challenge for GitHub in the next 10 years. They want to push GitHub to any vertical. So right now, GitHub is a tool used by developers, but they want lawyers to use it, because lawyers, they just use text document all day. They want accountants to use it. They want anything dealing with text, use it. Any job dealing with text. So that's what they want to achieve, and that's their big plan. So right now, it's still for the developers, but they are pushing. For instance, GitHub is working with the US government, and a lot of documentation gets written on GitHub from Washington. So they are pushing it to the government. I'm sorry?
Does that mean it's open source?
In this specific case, it is, because it's, yeah, I mean, the government, he wants to do that in public. That's something he already does in public, but on its own website, which is crappy, and now it's on GitHub. And I don't remember exactly what's a repo, but I think it's just government, or, yeah. So yeah, basically this is a landing page from GitHub. It's a product they want. I mean, it's just GitHub behind, but they specify the landing page for specific customer segment, which are government. So they want any government to use GitHub for things which is with public engagement. And they won't stop here. They will really want to infiltrate any corporation.
So I can imagine if you want to publish a new law, you could even ask and source help from the public.
Actually, that's what one French engineer did a few months ago. He took the Code Civil, which was written by Napoleon like 200 years ago. And so he took it from Légifrance, which is a French website where you can find all laws of France. And he took it and it recreated all the history and commits from all laws changing the code. So you can say, so let's take the livre premier, so first book. and first title, and article 1, I don't know where it is. There's no article 1. Okay. Maybe article 1 has been removed, so article 7, I don't know. And you have this article, and you can see the history. So there's no history for this one. But I remember when we used to have the law where you could have same-sex marriage, they had to change all the articles where they said husband and wives, and it changed to partners. So there's a commit with that, for instance, which is quite nice. So you can take law and law enforcement and law in the parliament and put it on GitHub.
And keep tracking the comments.
And keep track. Yeah. You could do that. Yeah. Because right now it's a process by people writing by hand and merging by hand everything, which is quite crazy. Thank you guys for coming tonight. That was great.